Good evening and welcome to our daily devotional reading. Goeiemorgen, Mama. I hope you had a good day or a good night's rest. I hope you're feeling ready to chill into Socrates and Plato, although the Socrates here in this part of the dialogue is not the Socrates that we think of when we hear the name. In this dialogue, it is a young Socrates, the friend of a young Theaetetus, who happened... I do think actually that, well, maybe I'm misreading Plato, but it seems like the young Socrates, who is not the one praised by the geometer Theodorus, is not as clever in his responses, although most of Socrates' interlocutors are yay-sayers, and not in the good Nietzschean way, but that bit of Platonic talk before we actually even got started. You know the drill by now. If I quiet down, feel free to take a few deep breaths. Likely I am breathing. When I just go quiet, I sometimes forget to tell you what I'm doing. I just do it. So feel free to breathe whenever I go quiet. Sometimes I imagine it's obvious. All that being said, let's listen to Plato. Stranger. Oh, Socrates, best of men, best of boys, he should say, because it's the boy Socrates. You are imposing upon me a very difficult task. We have already digressed further from our original intention than we ought, and you would have us wander still further away. But we must now return to our subject, and hereafter, when there is a leisure hour, we will follow up the other track. At some other time, I wish you to guard against imagining that you ever heard me declare. What? That a class and a part are distinct. Young Socrates. What did I hear then? Stranger. That a class is necessarily a part, but there is no similar necessity that a part should be a class. That is the view which I should always wish you to attribute to me, Socrates. So be it. There is another thing which I should like to know. What is it? The point at which we digressed, for if I am not mistaken, the exact place was at the question where you would divide the management of herds. To this you appeared rather too ready to answer that there were two species of animals, man being one and all brutes making up the other. True. I thought that in taking away a part, you imagined that the remainder formed a class, because you were able to call them by the common name of brutes. That again is true. Suppose now, O most courageous of dialecticians, that some wise and understanding creature such as a crane is reputed to be, were, in imitation of you, to make a similar division and set up cranes against all other animals to their own special glorification, at the same time jumbling together all the others, including man, under the appellation of brutes. Here would be the sort of error which we must try to avoid. But how can we be safe? If we do not divide the whole class of animals, we shall be less likely to fall into that error. We had better not take the whole. Yes, there lay the source of error in our former division. How? You remember how that part of the art of knowledge which was concerned with command had to do with the rearing of living creatures? I mean with animals in herds. Yes. In that case, there was already implied a division of all animals into tame and wild. Those whose nature can be tamed are called tame, and those who cannot be tamed are called wild. True. And the political science of which we are in search is and ever was concerned with tame animals, and is also confined to gregarious herd animals. Young Socrates. Yes, stranger. But then we ought not to divide as we did, taking the whole class at once. Neither let us be in too great haste to arrive quickly at the political science. For this mistake has already brought upon us the misfortune of which the proverb speaks. What misfortune? The misfortune of too much haste, which is too little speed. Young Socrates. And all the better, stranger, we got what we deserved. Stranger. Very well. Let us then begin again and endeavor to divide the collective rearing of animals, for probably the completion of the argument will best show what you are so anxious to know. Tell me then. What? Have you ever heard, as you very likely may, for I do not suppose that you ever actually visited them, of the preserves of fishes in the Nile, and in the ponds of the great king? Or you may have seen similar preserves in wells at home. Yes, to be sure, I have seen them, and I have often heard the others described. Stranger. And you may have heard also, and may have assured by report, although you have not travelled in those regions, of nurseries of geese and cranes in the plains of Thessaly. Certainly. I ask you because there is a new division of the management of herds into the management of land and of water herds. There is. And do you agree that we ought to divide the collective rearing of herds into two corresponding parts, the one the rearing of water and the other the rearing of land herds? Yes. There is surely no need to ask which of these two the royal art, for it is evident to everybody. Certainly. And one can divide the herds which feeds on dry land. How could you divide them? I should distinguish between those who fly and those which walk. Most true. And where shall we look for the political animal? Might not an idiot, so to speak, know that he is a pedestrian? Certainly. Try people on bikes. Stranger. The art of managing the walking animal has to be further divided, just as you might have an even number. Clearly, let me note that there appear in view two ways to that part or class which the argument aims at reaching. The one a speedier way which cuts off a small portion and leaves a large. The other agrees better with the principle which we were laying down, that as far as we can we should divide in the middle. But it is longer. Can we take either of them, whichever we please? I like how he's testing the boy. Young Socrates, cannot we have both ways? Stranger, together? What a thing to ask! But if you take them in turn, you clearly may. Young Socrates, then I should like to have them in turn. Stranger, there will be no difficulty as we are near the end. If we had been at the beginning or in the middle, I should have demurred to your request. But now, in accordance with your desire, let us begin with the longer way. While we are fresh, we shall get on better. And now attend to the division. Let me hear. The tame, walking, herding animals are distributed by nature into two classes. Upon what principle? The one grows horns and the other is without horns. Clearly. Suppose that you divide the science which manages pedestrian animals into two corresponding parts, and define them, for if you try to invent names for them, you will find the intricacy too great. Young Socrates, how must I speak of them then? In this way, let the science of managing pedestrian animals be divided into two parts, and one part assigned to the horned herd, and the other to the herd that has no horns. All that you say has been abundantly proved and may therefore be assumed. The king is clearly the shepherd of the polled herd, who have no horns. That is evident. Shall we break up this hornless herd into sections and endeavor to assign to him what is his? By all means. Shall we distinguish them by their having and not having cloven feet, or by their mixing or not mixing the breed? You know what I mean? What? I mean that horses and asses naturally breed with one another. Yes. But the remainder of the hornless herd of tame animals will not mix the breed. Very true. And of which has the statesman charge, of the mixed or the unmixed race? Clearly of the unmixed. I suppose that we must divide this again as before. We must. Every tame and herding animal has now been split up, with the exception of two species, for I hardly think that dogs should be reckoned among gregarious animals. Certainly not. But how shall we divide the two remaining species? stranger. There is a measure of difference which may be appropriately employed by you and Theaetetus, who are students of geometry. What is it? I suddenly can't pronounce this word. Diameter, and again the diameter and of a diameter. What do you mean? And we will have to wait until tomorrow for the answer. Thus far our scripture of the evening. Well, Nietzsche will have something to say about this whole tame animal business. Just today I read about it. I'm not quite sure if I read it in The Gay Science or in Twilight of the Idols. I read this week's allocation again. I really, really do like The Gay Science. I read quite a lot today, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it. Or if it's even in this book, maybe it's in Twilight. Our own human, all too human folly, which we know. Well, the political science has to do, I'm sure he would agree with that, with taming the wild animal which is humankind supposed to be. Personally, I think this feels a bit unnecessarily long. This not just jumping from between humans and animals, although we are indeed also animals, and that is very often stated by Plato, that we are animals amongst the animals, but a different kind. The political animal, the thinking animal, the rational animal, supposedly. But I think I recently heard John say, I'm still busy with his lecture series on the good. It takes me forever. And I was cleaning today, but I listened to something else. That biology doesn't actually find it that easy to divide species and all those things anymore. And indeed, where would you draw the line if you go back into evolution? Where did humanity begin? But I think I do prefer our current way of distinguishing between the different species, which, as far as I know, the only one who really still counts. Oh man, it's like maybe like hooves and stuff still count, but not really, only for the religious. Those who intermix, interbreed, horses and asses. I must be a horse. And those who don't. It does feel like some of the divisions feel a bit forced. Well, land and sea does make a big difference. Wild and tame makes a big difference. Flying or not, flying or walking is kind of... No, indeed, he makes good divisions. Scratch everything I said. I know not what I speak of. So, seeing that we're on... The statesman is also known as the king, the ruler. And we're searching for ways to increase our own nobility. Kingship. I'm hesitant to say if I should be inclusive and say queenship. But I think it's not necessary, because I think queens just know how to rule. And I think we rule differently. But for a king, take note that you have dominion over land animals, and precisely, more explicitly, walking land animals. Do with that what you will. I have 2 books next to me. One I put here this morning after I read today's chapter. I'm very much still at the beginning, but I am so happy that I have failed to read it until now. It is quite a privilege to read such a book for the first time when you're mature. And I totally see why Dostoevsky was my first celebrity crush. Maybe after Jesus. And maybe after Keanu Reeves. With The Idiot. I read it in high school, The Idiot. I just I fell madly in love with Dostoevsky. And I tried to reread The Idiot last year, but it didn't go so well. It just didn't flow. I think, although, like I said, it's my first read, so I don't know, but this version, the Penguin version, reads really easily, really flowy. So I imagine it's a good translation. Yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. It's like a first kiss. Very long, very slow. Because I'm only reading like a chapter a day on my days off. And not like the whole chapters, like just the parts. Parts and the whole. It all comes back to the parts and the whole. Yeah, so I put the book there after I read it because I just wanted to share with you all how much joy I'm experiencing in the book. I honestly do think it's a very great pleasure and privilege to read such a book for the first time. For the first time. But especially when you're actually supposed to have read it like many times. And the other book that I have, it was on my shelf under my red shelf. Alas, I will follow my folly into another book that I take from my read pile instead of my unread pile. But I was already considering doing that. I was like, oh, maybe I should just reread this. I haven't read it since BC, before COVID. I think is because I have a post about it. How old is this? Yeah, it must be before. Definitely before. So I will reread that as well. I'll continue to dip into it. Like Nietzsche says, this I know. Well, I'm quite sure this is in the gay science. Thinking deep thoughts, one should dip in and out to, like in cold water. And almost gave my true identity away there. I thought of a ritual when I read that. If you ever go to Glastonbury, there's a cave. No, there are two springs, the red spring and the white spring. The red spring is the chalice well, which is associated with, of course, Mary Magdalene. And the white spring is in a cave sort of thing, and it's really cold water, but you can go into the water. And I've been baptized there by my sister Rebecca, and I've baptized her into Woden, the wisdom of Woden. We each offered an eye for the sake of wisdom. But that would be a really good Nietzschean ritual. If you're interested, I could help you, or Rebecca could help you, although she's not working at the moment as far as I know, unless you write her a letter which explains how much you need it and why you need it, and then she will pick and choose clients. She will be better than me, of course, at making the ritual. That's what she does. But yeah, go to the white well in Glastonbury, dip in the white pool. You don't have to be naked, but most people do go into the pool naked. There's like a really cold one that's relatively deep, and then you go out, and there's a shallow one where you can sit if you want. And probably it's also freezing cold, but when you come from the real cold one, it doesn't feel cold at all. It will be a really good ritual, I think, for thinking deep thoughts. Or something. I haven't given it much thought yet. But yeah. I hope you have a good night's rest. And I hope wherever you go, that you will be led by wisdom. May the spirit of Sophia be with you.